Hey everyone. If you're like me and always trying to keep up with what's going on with the laws in India, you'll know that there are a lot of, changes happening.
Definitely, especially if you're prepping for the UPSC exams, right? It's so important to understand these big shifts in governance.
Absolutely.
Huh.
And, one area that's really caught my eye is this whole issue of over-criminalization. And the government is trying to, streamline things with these Jan Vishwas bills.
Exactly, and I think it's a super interesting development. Our main source for this deep dive, by the way, is a report from the Vitti Center for Legal Policy. It was featured in the Indian Express recently, and it dives into the whole over-criminalization thing.
Yeah, so, what are we even talking about here? How widespread is this?
Well, get this. We're talking about something like 370 central laws with criminal provisions, and that adds up to over 7,300 different crimes.
Wow, that's a huge number. But I mean, okay, 7,300 crimes. What does that actually look like in real life?
So here's the thing. The vast majority of these offenses, like around 75% of them, aren't really what you'd think of as, hardcore criminal stuff.
Right, like murder or theft. Got it.
Exactly. More everyday things, actually.
Okay, that's where it gets a little crazy, right? The Vitti report had some wild examples.
Totally. Like, imagine getting in trouble for milking your cow on the street. Or say you're a pet owner and your animal unfortunately passes away and you don't report it within 3 hours. Boom, you're breaking the law.
Or even they said something about not giving your pet enough exercise. That's wild.
Oh, yeah. And even storing e-cigarettes can apparently get you in hot water. So many things that you wouldn't even think twice about.
It makes you wonder how much of this is, unintentional. And then what happens?
That's the key point, right? When so many minor things are criminalized, it can give officials a lot of leeway to, exercise their power maybe a bit too freely.
Yeah, and it blurs the lines between a serious offense and just, a mistake.
Exactly. And the punishments can be pretty disproportionate, too. Like, the report mentioned that not keeping proper mental health care records can land you in jail for the same amount of time as unauthorized brain surgery. 6 months.
Seriously. That just seems crazy. And this is where it hits home for all of us, right? Because if we don't even know about all these laws, we're walking around potentially breaking them left and right.
Right. And it can make you vulnerable to, corruption or scams. If someone knows about a law that you don't, they can take advantage.
And it goes even deeper than that, right? This impacts our whole justice system.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. India has a massive backlog of criminal cases, like crores of them. And a huge percentage of our prison population are under trials, people waiting for their cases to even be heard.
Something like 75%, right?
Yep, around that. So for a lot of people, especially those who can't afford fancy lawyers or don't have the resources, the legal process itself becomes the punishment.
Right, even if they're eventually found innocent. So what's the solution here?
Well, that's where the Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0 comes in.
Right, this is what we've been hearing about. It's supposed to make things more sensible, yeah.
Yeah, the idea is to decriminalize a lot of these less serious offenses and try to make our laws more, rational. And there's even talk of Jan Vishwas 3.0 focusing on state-level stuff, too.
So more streamlining, more efficiency, I guess. But how do we decide what to decriminalize? It can't just be random, right?
That's where the Vithi report gets really interesting. They outline some guiding principles. First, criminal law should really be about protecting our core values, the fundamental stuff.
Makes sense. Protect the really important things.
Right. And second, it should be used to prevent serious harm. Not just any harm, but harm that really matters.
So there needs to be a clear and present danger, so to speak. What else?
Third, it should be effective, like it should actually work, and it should be efficient. No point having laws that are just clogging up the system. And finally, the punishment needs to fit the crime. Proportionality is key.
Yeah, so like we were talking about earlier, 6 months in jail for paperwork error versus 6 months for, illegal surgery just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. But it's not as simple as just getting rid of laws, right? We have to think about the ripple effects. How will these changes impact human rights, society as a whole, the costs involved, and the whole justice system?
A lot of moving parts there. But overall, it seems like this is about moving towards a different approach to justice, right? Less about just punishing people and more about rehabilitation.
Exactly. A more restorative system. And this ties into India's vision for Viksit Bharat by 2047. Part of that is ease of living, and that includes having laws that make sense and don't make life harder than it needs to be.
So it's about finding that middle ground, like ensuring people follow the rules, but also trusting them and not jumping straight to punishment.
It's that balance, Mate Marge, that's so important. And that's really what these Jan Vishwas initiatives are all about.
Wow, it's really fascinating stuff. And For our listeners, especially those of you gearing up for the UPSC, I think the key takeaway is this. India has a serious over-criminalization problem, and it affects us all. The Jan Vishwas Bills are a step towards fixing this, but it's a complex issue with a lot to consider.
And on that note, think about this. How many seemingly harmless things you do every day might technically be breaking some obscure law? And what does that say about the kind of society we live in and how we govern ourselves? This is definitely something to ponder, especially for your mains exams and maybe even for prelims. It touches on governance, law, social justice, the whole works.
It's a big one for sure. If you found this deep dive helpful and you're hungry for more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And if you have questions, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to keep this conversation going.
Totally. We'd love hearing from you guys.
And just a reminder, our discussion today was based on information from the Indian Express, which highlighted a report from the VD Center for Legal Policy. So thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
Take care.